Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon, but it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that.
Now, I what I read that you wrote on the forum was that you wanted to talk about sales, marketing, branding.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Are sales and marketing and branding your wheelhouse? Is that your thing that you're really good at, that you feel really confident about?
I do now, but I never did before. I moved to this smaller town about 5 years ago now, and I never really had that much of an issue with sales and marketing and any of that prior to moving here. And so I just always assumed that coming here I would do well, and I didn't.
Is that right?
I didn't. Mm-mm.
Why not? In retrospect. Well,
I think a couple of different reasons. Like, I moved to a much smaller area, so population's much smaller. Mm-hmm. The predominant population in this town is definitely more blue collar as opposed to higher income. Mm-hmm. And the locals, anyway, the people that were born here and raised here, it's a tourist town. So most people are very, very low to mid income. Like, they don't have a lot of expendable cash. So the people that, the massive houses that you see around our lake and, that are upwards of, $2, $3, $4, $5 million are all owned by out of towners and their second homes.
Their second or third homes. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're only in town for a week out of the year, maybe 2 at the most. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like, I just assumed that I'd be able to, get access to that bunch of people, and I couldn't. So I was failing and I'm drowning, and I was like literally thinking of switching careers again and going back to, what I did before. And, right. So many people would tell me, no, it's just, it's the way you're doing things. And I would argue with them and say, absolutely not. It's my market.
You would get defensive.
Oh yeah. Like you don't live here. You don't know what these people are like. Right. And, I'd have successful, photographers tell me, they'd say, no, you can do it there. Trust me, you can. I'd go, I can't. And so
that had to be really frustrating. Even if someone means well, it has to be really frustrating for you to be in the scenario that you were in. And not to be like new, like you it's not like you haven't been around the block, right? To be doing this for so long and then to move and then to experience that, which is not what you expected, but then to have other people who were successful or seemingly successful say, oh, you should be able to do this. This will work for you. When it wasn't at the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I just, I would buy courses, right? And this one photographer, said this. And as soon as I would buy the course and spend massive amounts of money, I would start listening to the course and I'd be like, okay, let's do this. And I'd go, oh, there's no way in hell I can do it the way they're doing it. Like, it's not me. I wouldn't be comfortable.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Just the whole way that they did it, and it worked for them, and that's fantastic. But there is no way that would suit me.
You were not willing to compromise who you are.
Yeah, it was just bizarre ways of doing it. And I'm like, I would feel like I just know at this point in my life, if something makes me feel super uncomfortable, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I've lived way too long. I'm 53 years old. I have to be very comfortable and happy with what I'm doing in order to be successful. And so, I just felt like.
Can you give an example of some? No, we don't need names, of course, but can you give an example of something that someone was suggesting, whether through a course or in person, that you do, that you should do, that you just couldn't do because it wasn't you?
Yes. One of the things that they did was they would go to every client's house and pick out their wardrobe from their bedroom closet for their photo shoot in the future. And I'm like, no, I don't. I feel like that's an invasion of privacy and it's way too personal and I don't want to see someone's bedroom, you know, like, yeah. So I was like, no, I can't do that. It's not me.
I think that's so great. It's funny because I've heard people suggest things like that, and there are some people when they suggest that and you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, I could totally see you doing that. That makes a lot of sense, and I bet your clients love it. And then I myself would not be comfortable because of who I am. Maybe kind of like you, but then I hear you say it and I'm like, oh yeah, I would never want to do that myself. But on the same hand, like there's other people I'm like, yep, that I could see that working for you. But but then the problem becomes, or the way that I see it is kind of like what we were just talking about, is that you can't just paint with a broad brush and say, this is how I do it. And so it works for me here in this environment. And therefore, Nikki, this is what you should do in British Columbia, Canada, because that's what worked for me, right?
Right.
It's not a one size fits all, not just logistically or geographically, but also personally. Like who you are. You can't imagine yourself walking into somebody's bedroom and going through their clothes in their closet. Okay, I get it. All right. Okay.
Yeah. And that's fine. Like there's a lot of personalities out there where they're so outgoing and so personable that they could do that and probably make the person on the receiving end feel super comfortable with it.
Right.
But I know that that's just not me. So anyway.
But if you're standing in somebody's closet, no one's feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
No one's feeling good about that.
That's what I would think. Anyways.
All right.
There's that.
So essentially, then what is what I'm interested in, right? Like, because you when we were talking before, you told me that something happened, or that you talked to somebody.
Yeah.
And
so yeah, I went down and I did a portrait session down in Colorado for a friend of mine who hired me to come down for herself and her daughter. And, and she has never claimed to be the world's greatest photographer at all. And she'll tell you right to your face, she'll go, I do enough. And that's always been her mandate, right? Like, I mean, some people are really, really, really fantastic photographers and can't earn a living at it. And some people are okay photographers and they make $1 gazillion.
And they kill it,
so
right?
She just happened to fall into that category. And how I had met her was she came to one of my workshops, my very first workshops years ago. And so her and I were interested in the same styling of photography. So like I had been doing themed portraits for little kids for years. And that was kind of when I became a photographer, I was coming out of a financial background. And I had great success in that background. And so what I did was when I got into photography, I was doing a little bit of everything like a lot of people do, but I was excelling at nothing. And so I took a step back and I said, okay, what can I do where in photography, what I did in my financial career that will set me apart? And instead of being, a tiny fish in a big, huge ocean of fish, where I can be a big fish in a little pond. And so I started looking for genres of portraits and stuff that I would enjoy doing, that was rare, that wasn't something everybody else was doing,
right?
And that therefore I could charge more for. And so I got into the themed genre with fairies and fishing and dragons and stuff for boys. And that was when I lived in Calgary in Alberta. And I immediately had success with it. But I also lived in a town with 1.3 million people. Right. So you have the numbers, right? I'm sorry, that's Precious. I can't kick her out because she'll
Precious is fine. At the door. She's totally fine.
Anyway, and So I had great success with it, and it was fun, and it was something that I enjoyed. And my creativity and my skill set really evolved with that. And until I became ridiculously different at it, and they looked like paintings, and everybody wanted them, So it was a great thing to get into, because it was something that every single mother with a little girl had to have, right? So when I moved here, I just always had that success with it. And people wanted them, but they wanted to spend $100. And they couldn't understand how, an image that can take, 4 hours to make would be more than $100. Yeah. So when I went down to Colorado, she was doing the same thing. She was doing fairies, and just like me, but on a much less extravagant scale. And she started telling me her numbers, and my jaw dropped to the floor, and I was like, what? But then, immediately my brain's like, oh, but you're in frickin' Denver. Like there's a zillion people here, and tons of them are super rich. So that makes sense.
Right.
She was like, oh, no, that's not it at all. She goes, look at my work. It's fine. It passes, I'm like, okay, then how are you doing this? And she currently is now starting to offer a course on it. So I will get you that information when she gives it to me. But she goes into way more detail than she ever went into it with me. She just gave me the basics. And, I was willing to try anything, because I was at the end of my rope, basically. Yeah. And so it was the thought of doing it the way that I do it now. I've turned it into my own thing. Like I took some tips from her, but now the thing with me is I listen to something, and I'm always looking for the upside, the business side of things. And so I took her ideas and I just kind of molded them into my own that would work better for me and my personality.
Yeah, you customized them.
Totally. Like she's much more sales driven, and she's also high volume, and I didn't want to be high volume.
Right.
So the way that I ended up doing it, and especially at this point in my life, like she's much younger than me. So she's, the breadwinner of her family, and she's super successful, and she's got goals and stuff like that. Whereas I'm kind of at the end. Right. So I'm not looking to be
goals and stuff like that.
Like she's got the big dreams, plans for the future.
Sure.
I'm at the end of my plans. Do you know what I mean? Like, so just water that down for me, water it down and make it something that, where I can have a very comfortable income that I don't have to work too hard at, because I don't want to work that hard anymore.
Right. I get it.
So the way that I ended up doing it was I could shoot for 1 weekend a month, and that's it.
1 weekend a month.
Basically, I shoot 1 weekend a month, and I make enough money on that weekend to have an extremely comfortable living, like extremely. I went from $100 client to making usually between $15,000 and $20,000 a weekend.
What can you tell me what you did, or a little bit?
Yep, of course. So the issue, I think the issue with all things photography is that if you look across the board, there's like the same work. You see the same thing everywhere. Everybody's doing the same thing. Something becomes trendy, everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
And so there's not a lot of photographers that stand out from the rest, right? Like everybody is pretty capable these days. And if you look online on YouTube, you can learn how to do pretty much anything you want to learn how to do.
Right.
But 90% of photographers do not feel comfortable or are not able to ask for the proper payment for their work, right? Because people go, oh, and they seize up and they're like, I just feel so bad asking for that. Like
I've heard people say it.
I hear it all the time. I see photographers who are much better photographers than I that are starving to death. And they're like, oh, I can't do it.
Right.
And this technique, the way that I've, and I've shared it with a couple of other super amazing photographers who I personally was shocked to hear they were struggling.
Yeah.
Because I assumed that they were making money hand over fist.
Oh, yeah.
So the key with this way of doing it is you can't offer regular photography. Like you just can't be that regular style, that regular, nothing special, just basic stuff. You have to have one genre that you do that is different. So you have to find that one thing that sets you apart from everybody else, and really, really, really focus on that one thing. Build a portfolio, something that you can replicate, not something that, you fluked into making this amazing image one time and geez, you can't figure out how to do it again. Right. But something where you have a consistent body of work in this one genre and something that everybody wants, right? And you can do it. Like there's all kinds of different things that you can focus on and find that one thing.
When you're saying that, like the first part of it, I understand. And I think in my mind, yeah, that's doable to focus on something and be different and focus on that one thing and get it right. And even the consistency piece, I understand all that. But the second part freaks me out a little bit, and that seems relatively unattainable in that it also has to be something that everybody wants. How do I, the first part I got. The second part, how do I make it something that everybody wants? I can be really, really good at doing something, and it might be something that nobody cares about.
Okay. It has to be a type of image that evokes an emotional response. Okay. So emotional response can be your grandparents, older folks. You see a picture of an old couple and they're hugging and their eyes are closed. People go nuts over it. Suddenly now, guess what? Grandkids, kids, they want that picture. So that's something different, but it has to evoke an emotional response, whatever it is.
Okay.
And so when you're considering what type or what genre or whatever, for me, the number one thing was find something first and foremost that I love to do, right? Because it has to be fun and it has to be something that you have a passion for, because that will come out in your work.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So number two, it has to evoke an emotional response. And for me, it was, oh, I wish I did this when my daughter was a little girl. I would love to have all of these pictures of her, And so for me, I think it has to be something to do with kids. It can't be a gorgeous model, because guess what? That does not sell and they don't have money at all. It has to be kids. It has to be babies. It has to be even maybe high school seniors-ish. I don't know. We don't have that genre up here. Or parents, grandparents, something that is different with those that will generate an emotional response.
Yeah.
It has to be an emotional response. Headshots, all that other stuff, that's, they can get that anywhere. And there's going to be a lot of good photographers doing that style, I still truly believe that our old people is a missing genre that is not being focused on enough, because people will pay for that. People want that. And there's a million different ways you can do it. For instance, if you go on to 500px and you follow some of these incredible Russian photographers, there's a few of them that are focusing on the relationship between grandma and grandpa. And they're just mind-blowing. And those are that style right there. If somebody were to focus on that, I guarantee you that would generate that emotional response, which opens up the wallet. Do you know what I mean? Like it has to be something like that.
Yep.
So basically for me, I knew going into this that my ticket was my fairy portraits and my dragons and the little boy stuff. I knew that because I've always had such success with it. And it's not only that, it's there's just so much more that you can sell with that. And I'll get into that in a minute. But the reason that I say it has to generate that emotional response and it has to be different from something else is because you want to produce something that you might only have to shoot for 1 weekend a month. And that 1 weekend a month has to generate enough income for you to be happy, right?
For everything else, right.
And the reason why I do it 1 weekend a month is because it has to be exclusive and rare.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
there's
something
more
that-
than just the, it's not like you're saying, I only want to work 1 weekend a month. There's actually intentionality in that. What it does is for your clients, just give them limited times, which then ups the perception of the experience and the product as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it's not just a photo session at this point, it's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you sell it as, an experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're not selling a photo session. You're not selling a sitting. You're selling an experience. And I actually do create an experience. So from the moment the kids walk in, I have Disney music playing. I had baked cookies. You can smell them.
Yeah, I've heard of that technique before.
Mhm.
That would
It's
work for
all-
me.
It's all, it's very subliminal, but it works. And,
But they're not booking based on their availability. They're not booking based on their availability. They're booking based on your availability, which in and of itself is that big piece, because it makes it seem like, ooh, I'm lucky that I get to do this because this is when she can, and she's got some space here for me to get in, so I need to make it happen, right? So there's almost a built-in call to action there too, right?
That's right.
Okay, keep going. I'm liking what I'm hearing.
So, and what I've done is I use Acuity Scheduling, which is a calendar app. And what works so beautifully with it is that the people can go in, you can, on your back end of that, you create the times, you create how much space between appointments, how long the appointments are. You can also create it so that, let's say you have 6 appointments a day, you don't want them to go in and see that no one's booked yet. So you can even do it so that you appear to be busy.
Right.
Like it's an amazing little thing. And so everything is automated from the scheduling perspective. So in there, it's got my frequently asked questions. It's got all of my terms. It also says that you have to spend a minimum of $200 minimum. Okay. And then they have to agree to the terms. They have to click, I agree. All right. But you outline all of your rules, whatever they might be.
Whatever they are,
they click agree, and they get their notification. With that notification comes my address, a map to my house, rules as far as, please don't bring anybody that's not going to be photographed, but please bring, your spouse or whoever has the purchasing decision making in the household, things like that. And I use Facebook ads. I use Facebook ads to target the exact people that I want to come. And I have filled up every single time.
Really?
And I don't do anything. I just sit back and it goes ding, 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 ding. That's it. Yeah, it's amazing. But here's the kicker. So the kicker is that I have no pricing on my website. I don't tell anybody the cost of my portraits, nothing, which is it really concerned me when I started with this.
I'm concerned right now. This is my concerned face.
Yes. And
not that you don't have pricing on your website. I'm not concerned about that. My concern comes with, when is that communicated? Because I want it communicated before the sales appointment. Do you not?
I mean, here's my response. Because in my frequently asked questions, I tell them that my prints start at $99 and go up from there.
So
and
they know that going in, at least.
They go up from there. And I would say that 75, no, probably more than that. Let's say 85% of booking clients don't try to contact me directly to ask me how much. The ones that do are the ones that probably aren't going to be able to afford me.
Right. Right.
So the ones that do, I tell them, I say, my small wall portrait is 12 by 18, starts at $550, and they go up from there. And that way they know, okay, well, I can't afford that.
They
Then
have that metric, and then they know it. I mean, it's, and over time you're building this brand anyway in this new location, where at some point that number probably gets smaller, the amount of people that even need to call and ask, because nobody walks into a Mercedes dealership and thinks, I'm going to get out of here with a, $18,000 brand new car, right?
Exactly.
You're doing that too over the course of months and years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. My concern was just like, oh man, do you deal with, you get to the sales appointment and, they pick out everything they want, and then they see that it's, $6,700 when they were expecting $670.
Well, right. What I do is, so I do the whole experience. I have, my 10 poses that I go through with every child. And I've also gotten really good at using continuous lighting for these setups so that my editing portion is far diminished from what I used to do back in the day.
So you're incorporating efficiency too. On the front end, and so that the back end is more efficient, cuts down the amount of time that you have to spend in post.
Absolutely.
Right. All that's starting to make more and more sense. Right.
Yeah. So in my studio, I have 2 sets. I have one for girls and one for boys. And the boys, if they don't want the fishing theme, the fishing is, they can do exactly right in my forest fairy theme set. If they want the dragon, it's a composite. So I just take them over to the gray area and I dress them up and I have them fight my softbox. Right. And then it turns into a dragon, right? Right. Yeah. And then as soon as the shooting part is over, and I keep that down to about 20 minutes or so. Yep. Because it's just bang, bang, bang. Right. And, at 20 minutes or so, it's over. I give the kids gift bags. So I make up massive amounts of gift bags, one for boys, one for girls. And I make sure that there's toys in there and candies and things that keep them interested because I do the viewing session immediately.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. I don't
do online. I don't do any of that. Right. So what happens is I give mom her little glass of whatever she wants, because I have everything, whatever she wants. Right. And my daughter helps me. So my daughter will then take my iPhone and go in and talk to them and then get a video testimonial while the kids
testimonial. Right. Okay. So it's important to know that you do have an assistant. It happens to be your daughter, but you do have help with this.
Have to.
Okay.
You can't do it yourself.
Okay.
And you have to realize too that, you're providing an experience. The whole thing is like, we do little fairy makeovers that they can add on when they're booking their appointment, and it's just glitter, but it actually makes the editing go faster too.
Yeah.
There's all these little things that they think is special. They pay for it. And then it actually does make the editing go faster.
Right.
And the experience, you know what I mean? So everything is very experience based. And so she gets the video testimonial while I'm downloading the images, and I cull them really quick. I cull them down to 20. So there's 20 images to choose from. And I tell them when they come in with their little gift bags and stuff into the viewing room that these are straight out of the camera and there's no magic yet. But of course that will happen in post. And then I tell them, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go through all the images. I'm just going to let you see them. And then after you see them, the first round, then I'm going to explain all of my products. And in my viewing room, I've got my whole walls are full of wall portraits, what I like to sell, so that they walk in and they're like, oh my God.
Right. And they have an idea of what to expect. Right.
Yes. Yeah. And then I sit down, and then comes the emotional response, Jed. Like that's like, the thing is, you have to understand the way I pose them, the lights I use, everything. It's so whimsical and magical that the little girl or the little girls and the parents have to have it. Like they have to. And this is something else that I do. So that $99 print, it doesn't come with edits. It's no edits. It's $99. You could buy a gift print. That's no problem. You can buy one of every single image if you want, but it's not going to have the magic. If you want to purchase the magic, then the minimum you can buy is a 12 by 18 wall portrait.
For what, $500 or $600 or whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's going to require you then to put lots more time into it in post.
That's right.
And so that the educating really is also sort of built into the experience as well. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you're calling it the magic, which I love. That's fantastic. And you're sitting there with them and the emotions are high and they're loving what they're seeing and they're loving what they're seeing that it could be. So they have that juxtaposition sitting right in front of them. And you're saying you could also have something like this, but it requires magic, which is essentially your time and effort on the back end. And that starts at this.
Yes.
And they get it because they can see it. No one's going to be like, well, why is that more money?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they can see why it's more money.
And I also, so the 8x10 that I have to show them, like all of my images are printed on fine art, Hanamula paper. I've also, so excited by this. I have a new product now that I can offer, but I haven't been able to because I haven't had any sessions since this all started. But my Hanamula paper, my ink, because I do my own printing up to a 16 by 20-ish. Yeah, 16 by 20. So after that, it costs me more. My back end costs me more for me to go to a lab, right? And it costs more, so I feel like I have to charge more. Whereby if I can print here, I can realistically charge less because it's costing me less. And I kind of do balance that out that way. What was I talking about now? I don't know where I was going. Some
new product that you were going to offer that you were very excited about.
Well, because do you guys sell metal prints?
Yes.
Okay. So I had no idea how metal prints were made. Do you know how metal prints are made?
The dye sub process.
They sublimate them. Right. So I managed to get a whole bunch of metal panels from China, but I got them cut into ovals because everything that I do is very ovally. Like, I'll show you this. Like, people, I don't know why, but like this is a little girl that I shot, and ovals sell so much better because there's something just more magical about an oval than a square or a rectangular print.
Well, it's very conducive to what it is that you're offering. It's very conducive to your style on top of everything else too. And it's just very different too.
Yeah. So I managed to get ovals, and the ink and the heat process, the whole process and the cost of creating a metal is so ridiculously cheaper than doing one print on fine art paper. Like $10 Canadian.
Yeah, which I did not know that. I didn't realize.
I didn't either. For a 12 by 18 oval, my cost is $10. So I ordered 50 of them, and now I can through my sales process, there's some people that slip through the cracks, and you realize once they're sitting there that they cannot afford you, right?
What do you do then?
So in the past, I just kind of, said, well, your $200 spend limit, you can buy two prints, right? You can buy 2 of them, and they'll walk out a little bit sad, but that's the risk that you take with the way of doing this.
Yeah.
And I would say that my very first weekend that I did this, I had one person who couldn't afford it out of 11 clients. Yeah. So it was, so this, I've kind of figured that, this will be my saving grace. So for those people that just can't afford it, I can offer them this and charge them less, but just do it person by person. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you get to decide.
Yeah. I'll go, you know what? I know that this person, they were so in love with the idea, they can't afford it. So I'm going to cut them a break, and I'm going to do it on this for this. And that's what I'll do.
I get it.
Yeah.
And then, so all of that, literally everything occurs except for the magic in that in that weekend.
That's right.
So then the rest of the month, your responsibility is to apply the magic to whatever orders and then get things ordered and then,
Yes.
get delivery on said items. And then they come in to pick them up, or you drop ship them. How do you typically handle that aspect?
People that are local, they can come and pick them up if I'm printing them. If they buy the larger wall portraits, then I get them drop shipped right to them.
Okay.
Yeah. I also sell albums, and those are specifically for the people that can't decide, or they pick 10 images or 15 images and they want them all. Then I have these ridiculously gorgeous, I call them fairy tale albums, and I personalize them with a story for the child. So I'll write a story, and on the pages, so you'll have a page with the story or part of the story, and then a related picture, and you turn it, and I'll do the same thing throughout with the kids' names.
Like a little children's fantasy book?
Yes.
You write the story?
Yes.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
And you customize it for each child?
Yes.
And do you base that? Okay. I've never heard, this is an idea I have never heard of.
Yeah.
And I like it. And it's also weird that it's an idea I've never heard of, because that doesn't happen much anymore.
I bet.
You're telling me something I've never heard of. And so I'm interested.
I can show you a sample, but I have to run down to my viewing room to get it.
Well, let me ask about it, because what we'll do is you can maybe send me a couple things and we'll include that in the edit, right? So let me ask you, because I'm interested in the process. Do you write something that is affected by your interaction with that child, and who you like? Do you kind of get to know them, and so it's customized based on that information that you're getting during the shoot, during the session? Like, you kind of, like, if it's a rowdy, excitable kid, like, you make it a certain type of story. If it's pretty chill kid,
so I'll give you an example so that you know.
Yeah, I
so
should just be quiet and listen. I should.
No, absolutely not. A grandmother brought in her 2 grandkids, a little boy and a little girl. The little girl was absolutely gorgeous, very outgoing and confident. The little boy was super quiet, a little bit withdrawn. And even because he was a knight, and even getting him to swing that sword was like he just didn't have that excitement for it. And so once I realized Grandma was going to buy a 15 image book, then that's when I really start discussing it with her. And I'll say, okay, so we're going to do a story. So your grandson is going to be a dragon slayer, and your granddaughter is a fairy in the forest. So I said, it seems like your granddaughter is a lot more confident than your grandson. And then so it kind of opens the door to her letting me know the relationship and what's going on there and the dynamics. So she filled me in and told me, this is what's going on. And, she overpowers him, and he's, this, that, and the other. So what I did was I took from that he was kind of in her shadow, and he didn't have the confidence that she did. So I made him the hero in the story. I made it so that there were dragons entering the fairy's magical forest, and he needed to come and save her from the dragons. And the grandmother bawled when she read the story, because she was like, you don't understand what this is going to do for his confidence now, because she's always been the hero, and she's always been so you just have to kind of ask the right questions and kind of get in there with what's happening, the dynamics, and then obviously whatever you're doing is you just write the story based on that. So it was
but
perfect.
the important piece to me is that you are giving them, again, intentionally giving them the opportunity to tell you more about themselves and the children, so that you have an idea of what it is that you could do to customize it even further and make it that much more special and timeless for them, right? And
Exactly.
and using that's a perfect example for me, because for that little boy, then I think that she's absolutely right, and that has the power to just do wonders for him and his confidence over time, right? That's a pretty big deal. A story. I cannot believe I've never heard of that idea ever. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. And for me, because I was in school, I was always a writer. Like I loved writing. To this day, I can write. And so that was easy for me. That was a nice kind of little edge that I could put into it that was still different that other people offer.
I think that's awesome, and I get that, but I'm wondering, okay, so someone's watching this and they're like, yeah, that's an amazing idea, but I can't write. It's not like you're writing a novel, right? And we'll get examples from you, hopefully, that we can then post along with this. But it's a couple sentences, right? It's just a basic little story. You're not writing 300 pages, right? You're not going to go up against Terry Brooks.
No. No, it's very basic. It's super basic.
Right.
It's not a once upon a time in a land far away, 50 pages. It's literally 5 pages of 1 or 2 lines on each
You're not
page.
Aesop. You're not Grimm.
No.
Okay, that's fantastic. I love it. This was wonderful. And so it's rolling, and you do this once a month.
It changed everything for me. So it started last year in May. So last May was the first time I did it, and my daughter and I made $18,000. And my mind exploded, Jed, because I went from struggling to get $150 from somebody, and this is what happened. My daughter was just sitting there like, I remember on the second day, we had a grandmother and a daughter bring in their 2 little girls. And I can tell you right now, the moment a grandmother either brings the kids or a grandmother comes, it's on. It's on now. Now I'm like, okay, here we go, right?
Grandmas, you want grandmas in the mix.
Those grandmothers, man. Whew, it was so funny because I remember I was with my I think it was my second last client of the second day, and my daughter walks in with a clipboard because I had her doing sales the first time. I do the sales now, but that first time I had her do them, and she walked in with a clipboard, and I was doing a little fairy makeover, and she goes like this and shows me the clipboard, and it said $67.95 or something. And I said, oh, is that for the day? And she goes, that was our last client.
That was the last order?
That was one order. And that was the grandmother that came in. And I was like, what?
That's phenomenal. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it changed everything. So what we did from there, because I thought, oh, I can't offer this here again because it was so exclusive. So I went to the next city over and did it there. So I did the exact same thing.
How do you go to the next city over? You're marketing only on Facebook?
Yes.
So you're using Facebook, targeting different places and targeting your market.
Yep.
In those different spots.
Yes.
And that's how you're doing it.
Yes. People are not realizing the power of Facebook ads. Facebook ad targeting is ridiculous.
Well, because you're also targeting moms and even grandmas, and apparently this is where the moms and the grandmas go.
I only target women. Men are part of my target audience. You can search by interest. So I choose parenting. You can choose parents 3 to 6 years old, 6 to 12 years old, and you can target by age. And I don't offer this to children under the age of 3.
Okay, they have to be 3.
They have to be 3.
Can you target grandparents?
Yes, and you target grandparents. So grandmothers and parents and interests in, kid stuff. You can get really narrow with it, but I leave it pretty broad because I want to just do a catch-all.
How expensive is it to market on the Facebook?
My first one, Jed, I am not even lying to you. My first one that I did last May cost me, I think it was $42 in Facebook ads. I did something like, I did $10 a day. It was, and I was full. The whole thing filled up in 3.5 days, 4 days.
Okay. Well, I'm starting to think I need to have a conversation with my wife after this.
It works. It works. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say this is for every single person out there. It's
Of course
not.
it's not, right?
Super specific. And
Right.
even if you have a product that this would work with, you still have to be comfortable with not telling people how much it is right up front. You know what I mean? And deal with that, because I'm not going to say that.
So remind me one more time, because that's the part that makes me nervous myself.
Yeah.
When is it that they do find out those minimums? When do they see that? Starting at?
That's during the booking process, right? So my Facebook ad leads them to a website, and that website has all of the experience and what they get and what their kids will get and all this other stuff, and it's got testimonials and it's got video testimonials.
Right. Yeah.
Got all that, and then book now. So they click the book now, it takes them to my Acuity calendar schedule, right? And in there, they see all this. They can pick their spot, the time. They click it, and then it says terms and conditions. They have to read them, and in there it says minimum purchase is $200.
Okay. That's where they see it.
Yeah. But my session is super low, Jed. Like, I keep my session at $99, but it's for the experience, right? What do you get for this $99? This is what you get. And you list everything that they get for the experience. You can add on a fairy makeover. It's $40. Click here if you want to. And then they pay for that, but they have to agree to all the terms and conditions. Prints start at $99 and go up from there.
How big is the block of time that they're booking? Are they booking an hour or an hour and a half?
They're booking an hour, but I'm actually doing an hour and a half per customer now.
Okay. So you give yourself a little buffer, both for them and then maybe even for yourself. Maybe you want to take a breath, or if it was me, grab a sandwich in between clients. So you give yourself a little bit of time.
Some people are quicker, some people are slower. So I always leave that.
Give a little bit of time. Okay. Well, I love it. I think it's phenomenal.
It works. And then everything stopped.
Where, right. Then there's that. Right.
Yeah.
Where can people go to find you and maybe even see a little bit of this on the interwebs?
Well, they can always go onto my website and take a look, because I have all the fairy tale stuff. It's a fairy tale genre. Galleries are on there, and information is just nikkiharrisonphotography.ca. And I have, social media everywhere as well.
Yeah. You're around. People will find you.
Not hard to find. Yeah. But
well,
also,
thank you. Well, what's that?
I will also, Jed, get you information on the photographer who taught me some of this, just to give her some of the credit, because she goes well into it, and I believe she has a course, so I want to make sure she gets credit for that. But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd funnel everybody to her too. I think it's a fantastic idea. I love it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for doing this with me today.
No problem.
And until next time, now now you're stuck. I'm just going to keep bugging you to do these, because this was a big one. And you told me something I've never heard. You told me something I haven't ever heard. And in 20 some years, that's becoming so rare that I'm going to bother you some more later on to do another one. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a good one.
You too.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right. Right there. It's there somewhere.